to In Focus. As you know, the November midterm elections are coming up pretty quickly. And until then, we're seeing some candidates get more and more desperate for attention. Take a look at this new campaign video from Charles Booker. He's the Democratic Senate nominee who's challenging Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky. Watch this campaign video that he put out.
The pain of our past persists to this day. In Kentucky, like many states throughout the South, lynching was a tool of terror. It was used to kill hopes for freedom. It was used to kill my ancestors. Now, in a historic victory for our Commonwealth, I have become the first Black Kentuckian to receive the Democratic nomination for U.S. Senate. My opponent, the very person who compared expanded health care to slavery. The person who said he would have opposed the Civil Rights Act. The person who single-handedly blocked an anti-lynching act from being federal law. The choice couldn't be clearer. Do we move forward together, or do we let politicians like Rand Paul forever hold us back and drive us apart? In November, we will choose healing. We will choose Kentucky.
All right, so the whole noose wearing charade is probably the most gaslighting thing I've ever seen in a campaign video, but I don't really want to focus on that right now. I'm here to do a little context check, if you will. So yes, back in 2020, Rand Paul did hold up legislation that would have made lynching a federal hate crime. That's only because he knew it was a silly political theatrical stunt. It's a loaded piece of legislation that was purely for virtue signaling's sake. To say a Republican supports lynching because they voted against this ridiculous proposed bill, the bill doesn't change anything. Lynching is already illegal. It's called murder. It's called torture. You want to make it a whole separate category to score woke points. Republicans know that, so we don't go along with it. But in this case, I mean, yeah, I would hold up legislation to criminalize lynching, quote unquote, because it's already a crime. You just want to give it its own category so you can push a race narrative. I think that's stupid, and so I won't go along with it. And by the way, Senator Rand Paul co-sponsored the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act, which was authored by Senators Tim Scott and Cory Booker. The bill passed the Senate 3 months ago and is now federal law. So it's very convenient that he just gets to tell the half-truth in this campaign video, because the full story just doesn't fit the narrative quite as well. To try the line that Rand Paul is in favor of lynching is obviously ridiculous. Joining me now from Nashville, Tennessee, political commentator Ian Haworth. Ian, thank you for being with me. So I've seen a lot of kooky campaign videos. I've seen a lot of cringe campaign videos, even on the right. A lot of the campaign gun-toting videos of a lot of Republicans running for office. I don't think that they hit where they're trying to hit too well. But videos like this, where you're wearing a noose, I mean, talk about a more fear-mongering approach to a campaign video than that. That's absurd. That's very outrageous.
I just don't know where to start, honestly. I mean, you touched on the one piece of important context, which is the fact that Rand Paul eventually co-sponsored an anti-lynching bill. So the whole premise of this advert is just nonsense. But also he spoke about not keeping us in the past. And there's only one person who is voluntarily putting a noose around his neck, and that is that person. You cannot say that we need to move on from the past while also dragging up horrendous parts of American history to make political statements. I think it's quite revolting. If you have any respect for the actual victims of lynching in the past, to use it as a campaign slogan, I think, is just beyond revolting. I mean, I don't see how he can even physically put the noose around his neck, let alone use it in a video. It's just disgusting. Yeah, totally agree. And that's a great point. You know, you talk about who wants to keep you in the past. You're the one voluntarily getting up there and putting a noose around your neck. Have you lost your mind? And it's not just with the race narrative, by the way. It's also with the whole LGBT narrative, because it is Pride Month right now, and there is a bit of irony in the fact that Democrats will celebrate Pride Month, the left will celebrate Pride Month here in America, but they're awfully quiet about places like Saudi Arabia, overseas, where being a homosexual is punishable by death, or, you know, other places in the Middle East. I want to get to this. There's a lot of corporations who are coming out to celebrate Pride in June. You sent out a tweet of BP, the oil company, and said, is there a reason why BP didn't use a rainbow for their Middle East branch? So obviously you've got the BP logo right here with the Pride. That's the BP logo in America. And then BP in the Middle East, they chose not to observe this Pride Month. I wonder why that is, Ian. Yeah, I wonder why. It can't possibly do with the fact that maybe one country is safe to make those kind of virtue signaling statements and another is not quite so safe. I think a lot of this, first I want to say it's important that I don't think making the rainbow flag as part of your logo is worthwhile at all. I don't think it does anything except try and corporatize the pride movement, which is kind of a revolting move away from the sort of civil rights aspect of its history. But just the fact that they don't have the guts to stand up for what they view as human rights somewhere where it's not safe to do so. You often see the left more generally criticizing Christianity very, very openly because Christians are, in the vast majority of cases, massively tolerant in the United States. They're not quite as quick to maybe criticize mosques and Islam, and there's a reason for that. It's because the left like to pick and choose who they criticize. They don't really have the guts to criticize people who are actually doing wrong. They want to be seen to be doing something while keeping themselves very, very safe, but physically and also in terms of profits.
Yeah, and I just find it ironic that you know, Mercedes-Benz, I think they did this too. I know we have a graphic of BMW throwing up the same thing. Mercedes-Benz, they have their American account, their Middle East account. Same thing with BMW. They're perfectly fine to celebrate it in America, but not overseas. And the irony, as you point out, America is so tolerant of, and not more than tolerant, they bend over backwards for the LGBT community. There's like 26 different LGBT holidays, including an entire month that we're currently in right now, where woke corporations exhaustively kowtow. You can't find a business that doesn't have the pride flag and the intersex flag and the trans flag hanging outside of their business, and yet we hear the same line that America, that they're underrepresented, that they're an unseen minority group that doesn't get the representation they deserve, that they're discriminated against. I can't think of anyone, Ian, any group in history that has been more widely accepted, revered, that has more political power and more social power than the LGBT movement.
Well, I think what actually draws these two segments together is the fact that the left and the Democratic Party require victimhood for them to exist. So it's all very well the country making progress in many areas where people who were persecuted are no longer persecuted, and many people are not only that celebrated in our culture, but they need to convince people that they're still victims. Otherwise, the Democratic Party, in their mind, wouldn't need to exist. If you didn't have victims, then you wouldn't need people protecting those victims. The fact is, the vast majority of people don't need protecting because America is a massively tolerant place, far more than any other place in the world. But without that fake level of victimhood, then you wouldn't need the Democratic Party, and that's what they're most fearful of. So they kind of try this weird two-sided step where they convince people that everyone is important based on certain victim status, but they also celebrate their own progress. It doesn't really make any sense.
Yeah, they do the same thing with the race narrative too, saying that, you know, black people and all these other minority skin color groups in America are belittled and underrepresented and discriminated against, when in reality we are the most racially tolerant, racially just, racially equitable nation in the entire world. We take in more immigrants from other countries than anyone else in the world, and it's not even close. Well, Ian, we are all out of time. I really appreciate you breaking this down for us. Thank you.
Thank you.